Hello there, it is the full year earning results time for VolitionRx, and I'm joined here in our studio by Cameron Reynolds, the CEO. Let's talk numbers first of all, because you've had the last quarter, obviously you report quarterly, but you've also got the fulls as well.
Absolutely. So we finished this year, 2018, with $13.4 million in cash, which is a lot more than we had this time last year in early 2018. And we also, subsequent to that, I'm very happy to announce, we've also had 6.7 million in extra warrants exercised. So if you add those two together, from the beginning of the year, it put us at a little over $20 million. And I think one other thing that's very important to remember, there was a $15 million warrant we gave out in August of last year. 5 million of that has now been exercised, and then there's $10 million more to be exercised by August of this year. So we're hopeful some or all of that will also be exercised, which would give us a very large part of next year as well.
Okay, so that's the numbers. Let's look at the sort of background to the numbers over the last year, particularly in 2018, and there'll be some quite significant news coming through, not least the results of some trials.
Yes, it's been a really big year. We spent a lot of time and effort on the background technology itself, making sure our assays were as robust as possible, making sure they all had monoclonal nucleosome lines of antibodies, also recombinant nucleosomes as the calibrant, which was science fiction a few years ago. Now we do it routinely. We've also done a lot of background work, making them adaptable on many other platforms, including chemiluminescence and beads, which increases the signal, and also means they can be on large machines. All that work's been going extremely well. It's taken a lot of time, and it's not newsworthy in the normal sense, but what allows us to do now is to proceed with confidence with our colorectal trials and really broaden a lot of other things that we do, which I'll outline in the process. But the really big ones are Nu.Q Veterinary, which I'll discuss later, also Nu.Q Capture, and a range of other cancers, most notably lung cancer.
So you now have product grade assays, and you're talking about the data, I mean, coming through as we speak actually. Give me a bit more background on those. What is it telling you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So our plan was always to get the assays to the final product grade, check all the matrices, which I can go through, but the serum, plasma, other things, and then try them on the small cohorts that we have in the freezer, then the medium, then the large. So it's only been the last month we've started that work on the first couple of assays that come through. Just as a reminder, we do have dozens in development, so that these are the very first ones to come through to that very final stage. We've run 3 small cohorts, 2 in lung and 1 in colorectal. So in the lung, the first cohort was 76 people, and we got the highest AUC we've ever got in a single assay, which was 85% accuracy area under the curve, and that was reproduced at 79% in the second, slightly larger cohort in lung cancer. And in the first cohort, that was improved with a second assay. So very much we're doing the larger trials. That's an excellent result. And in the colorectal, with the first Nu.Q, we had just over 70%, 72% accuracy, AUC, and that was increased to 84% in a second assay. So very encouraging, and now we're putting more assays through it once they come to the final phase, finishing off the exact matrices we want, and then running the larger trials. And we'll have a lot of data on all of those through the year as we go from small to medium to large.
Let's drill down into a bit more detail about some of those headlines that you gave. As you mentioned, Nu.Q there, the Nu.Q platform, and a move towards DNA, which of course we've heard a lot about in recent years about other, not necessarily competitors, but other organisations looking at DNA. But you're possibly going to have some involvement with DNA. Just explain the background to that.
Yeah, DNA has been a huge topic for a long time, in the last 5 or 6 years, and really there was supposed to be a lot of promise in that for early detection, and it really hasn't happened in the way a lot of people were expecting. The primary reason is it's very tough to find the DNA in circulation. There's a lot of other things. So we've had a project going now as part of our platform. It's not a lot of extra work because we have a very adaptable platform, but the basic idea, and we're well through the process of seeing if it can be a reality, is to capture nucleosomes and then try, with a nucleosome it comes with a DNA. Now if we can capture nucleosomes more or less from the tumour, we can enrich or deplete nucleosomes from the tumour, therefore DNA from the tumour. And that could make a lot of potential licensing or a better product for us and anyone in the DNA space. So the first question you have to ask is, can you indeed capture nucleosomes and enrich them? And I'm very happy to say, as of today, we're announcing that we absolutely can capture and enrich or deplete nucleosomes. But the all-important next step, and we're not there, but we're in the process now of seeing if we can do it, is to see if we can concentrate ones from the tumour, therefore making it much either mass spectrometry or DNA.
So finally on that point, bringing it to layman's terms, my language really, we've talked in the past about looking for needles in haystacks when we're talking about DNA, whereas nucleosomes is more looking for the haystack.
Yes.
With this process, I've heard that it's more cleansing the haystack and making it more pure and making it easier for the DNA process. Is that too simplistic?
No, that's exactly right. So typically the DNA from the cancer is thought to be 1 or a handful of percent of the circulating DNA in your body. If we can enrich that by, as we seem we can, other nucleosomes, up to 70 or 90%, you make it much, much easier. Now we think the nucleosomes are a very important part of all this process, and the early detection we're showing in areas is based on the nucleosomes, but this could be a very important tool for others or ourselves to really give promise to the DNA space.
And from an investor's perspective on this particular subject, you've already alluded to it, a revenue stream could be licensing?
It could be licensing. If it can be shown to work, it's huge, it's massive. I mean, it would be as important as the other work we're doing.
I'm going to talk about milestones coming up in 2019 and beyond in a moment, but just give us a bit more detail around the vet aspect of your work. And here we're talking predominantly maybe companion animals, dogs, etc.
Yes, it's been something which we've added on. We've had some samples in the freezer for a while from animals, horses and dogs. And the DNA and nucleosomes in almost every living thing, including horses and dogs, is very, very similar. So we've been using our human assays in the animal sphere, and it's absolutely true. We can detect them now, and so we're seeing now how we can differentiate different diseases. We're broadly hopeful it can be similar to the human levels of detection, which would mean a massive opportunity for the company. The numbers actually I found quite surprising. In the United States alone, there are 1.7 million humans diagnosed with cancer every year, which is obviously incredibly tragic. But there's 4.7 million dogs diagnosed with cancer every year in the US. So 2.5 times as many dogs diagnosed every year as humans. And we'd look to charge about the same as we would in humans, $100 or $200, so potentially a massive opportunity. We're working with Texas A&M to see if we can work out a program with them to see about trials and launching a product.
And an interesting final aside on that, I don't want to talk too much about the vet, but of course, massive growth in companion animals and dogs in some of the markets where you're also operating, in Asia and also China. So potential there for the future.
Huge. We're taking Asia very, very seriously for the veterinary market, as you discussed. Also in the lung market, it's a potential massive product in countries like China and India, where lung cancer is becoming more and more common because of the horrible air quality.
Okay, let's look at the key milestones coming up in 2019. You may also mention beyond there. You've got an event coming up in New York. You're obviously listed on the New York Stock Exchange. What's happening there? Who are you meeting and who's going to come along?
Yes, we thought it was a very good opportunity with all these things happening to sit down with our investors and just go through it all over a proper period with a few of the insiders, some of the scientific team, to really update them of the milestones that we're going for. So we've invited anyone who wants to come who's a shareholder or interested in the company. New York Stock Exchange, April 9th in New York City. And we're going to have a couple of key, apart from our own team, to go through milestones, targets, all those kind of things. Two very important ones. Dr. Imhoff from Germany, who's a specialist in mass spectrometry, which is part of the Nu.Q capture. Once you have the nucleosomes with the DNA, you can either sequence the DNA or you can do mass spectrometry on the nucleosomes themselves. Very cutting edge. He's a genius in this space, I think, fair to say. And he can really tell you how he can help us to get Nu.Q capture as a product. And on the vet side, Dr. Wilson Robles from Texas A&M will also outline some of our work together and some of the plans that we have to work with them to launch a veterinary product.
And you can also do that because you have finance in place, because I always like to finish where we started. Let's finish with the number milestones. Where does that position you for 2019 and beyond?
So we're spending about 3.7 million a quarter. So if you add up all the money together, it's 20 million as of January 1st. So it takes us well and truly into the second quarter of next year. And with the 10 million warrants also outstanding at $3, which we'd hopefully expect to be exercised, that would take us well and truly through to the end of next year. Then all the milestones we have announced in the colorectal space, all the other cancers. We're hopeful for Nu.Q capture, we'll see. We're very hopeful for Nu.Q vet, which will be a lot of data this year and next year. So expect to see we're really speeding up now and things are really coming together.
Okay, very interesting. And there will be further video reports from that event in New York coming up fairly soon. But for the time being, CEO of VolitionRx, Cameron Reynolds, thank you very much for filling us in on your full year results. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. It's been a pleasure.